You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans. Right after a massive Ohio State Rose Bowl win over Oregon, Ohio State 41, Oregon 21. The Buckeyes advance to stay alive in the college football playoff. They'll play Texas in the Cotton Bowl in about a week and a half from now. But joining us for this Locked On Buckeyes squad show, I am your host, Jay Stevens. We have Barrett Sallee from College Football Smothered and Covered, and also Ohio State analyst Jeff Hunt. Not Jeff Smith. I don't know what Jeremiah Smith is in our head. We talked about him before the show started. And
justifiably
Jeff,
so.
Yeah, he's just unreal. Before we get to Jeremiah Smith in general, Jeff, I want to open up with you because when I think about this game, watching this game, I was a person that picked Ohio State to lose. I'll go right out and say it. I was wrong. People are going to rip me for it. I don't care. I got a job to call the game like I see it. I thought Ohio State was going to go into the game and walk away with an L. They walked away with a W. And they showed up today in a way that I was not expecting. Ryan Day said we're going to be explosive. We're going to go to our go-to guys early and often. And Oregon didn't have an answer. All year long, Oregon had answers for every team. Today Ohio State had answers for everything Oregon threw at them. And that's kind of my biggest thing right now is Ohio State's finding ways to have answers when they're facing really big teams in the playoff.
Yeah, and what are we talking about here? What you're really talking about, and this is the biggest criticism of Ohio State across the board, across the country, coaching. Here's what they did. They obviously watched film. They obviously found what they felt. Oregon's a really good team. Let's not lose that in this game, that Oregon is a good team. That's what's so impressive about this win by Ohio State. They coached well, and Ohio State did something that this defense is built to do two things. It's built to pressure with 4, and it's built to have a lead. And when they went up 14, and then they were able to get pressure with Sawyer and JTT, who, Jay and I have criticized up and down and in between some of the praise for 4 years. That's when everybody, fans and neutral viewers and everything thought, well, Oregon's in trouble. And it never let up. They had Gabriel looking at his feet and looking ahead instead of just playing comfortable down the field. And Oregon, and Ohio State's defensive backs, honestly covered better. They learned their lesson and didn't try to challenge them on the outside. And Caleb Downs played, a historic game. If you go back and just watch him, it was really basically what Ohio State was built to do. They actually did in this game, and that's why they came out with the W.
Barrett, same thing going to you. I've been thinking about Ohio State, and I've been really questioning Ryan Day's coaching at sometimes this year, Chip Kelly's coaching. Really, first part of the year, the defense, Jeff and I did shows discussing how the defense at times are just not doing the things that they're doing later in the year. Biggest takeaway for you from this game, mine was just Ohio State had answers, but what's your biggest takeaway right now after the game is over?
Well, to me, it's that Ohio State's ceiling is higher than anybody in the country by far. But I think the more important thing is that the floor is way higher now than it was, a month ago. I think, it's one thing to do what they did to Tennessee because that matchup was sort of known. It wasn't, everyone sort of had tape on Tennessee. And even though Ohio State had played Oregon before, they're different teams. That's half a season ago. And so being able to play at that level against an opponent that has had plenty of time to study you, to get ready to get healthy, I should say. It's massive. I mean, it's massive for Ohio State to go out there and say, hey, look, what we showed is not who we are. Ryan Day to basically, put the pieces back together and say, hey, look, we're going to go be that dynamic offense. We're going to remember that Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka are real people on a roster that you can actually use. And, get back to the rushing attack. Because that rushing, you guys know this better than I do, but that rushing attack has it's been really good at times. And then it's like, well, what the hell? Where are you? It seems like that changed. They stayed true to their identity. And, Jeff, you mentioned when that defense, when they get a lead, that defense is built for situations like that. And to get off to hot starts in the two biggest games of the season is a big step moving forward, especially considering I think they're going to have the easier path of to the national championship game of the other two participants.
Yeah, they're almost going backwards in this path. Again, just like the last game against Tennessee. Barry, you said a couple great things there about that game. We knew what we were going to get, and that's how it played out. This one, no, I don't care who it is. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw Oregon being confused. And I watched a lot of the Sky Cam, because I like to watch the safety defensive backs. And Ohio State again played their defense and just played it very well. But like you said, through the year, no, the rushing attack has not been there at all. They break big ones against, most teams are lesser than Ohio State. And I don't mean as an insult.
Right.
But most of the time,
every team.
yeah, and they break the 60-yarders, and then they get a bunch of 2 and 3 yarders, and then the athletes bail them out. Me and Jay talk just repetitively about the athletes always bail Ohio State out. Offensive line, is the MVP of this game. I mean, they played great. They really have built themselves since the Oregon game. I mean, that's when this offensive line, had to become something different. As much criticism as they've received, man, they played great. It looked good on film. And then when that works, everything works. There was actually I thought there were some running lanes out there that because of Oregon's defensive line made some really good, last second plays. There was some gaping holes out there that I thought any minute it's going to break, and a couple of them did. But especially when Judkins was in, I don't know if there's I wouldn't be smart enough to know if there's a different blocking type for Judkins, but I don't know how many times I said like this is the one, and they kept a shoestring here or there, and it really kept it from breaking open. And then so it was just, I don't know. Again, it just all came together. This is the team that we were promised in July, and it came together for this game. We thought it was for the Tennessee game, but now I realize no, this is the game this team was built for. And it was really something to see as a fan. From the fan side of it, this was awesome.
So Jeff, you made a comment there about this is a team we're finally getting to see, and it's made for this moment. Ryan Day made a very specific coaching decision this year to kind of slow roll this thing, to do more huddling this year, to do a more methodical approach to the offense. We saw more 7-play, 10-play, 12-play drives that we don't normally see. All of a sudden in this game, 3 plays, touchdown. 3 plays, touchdown. What was it, a 1-play touchdown to Travion Henderson on the run up the right sideline? Yeah. And I think there's a benefit to both. I see the benefit to Ryan Day saying 7, 10, 12-play scoring drives. You're going to need these down the road. I also see a benefit of quickly scoring against Oregon, because I think in this kind of game, we talk about getting up early here, and maybe it was someone on the broadcast talking about all of the teams that got the bye. They got down early because the teams that came in that played that last game, I think they kind of had a little umph in them, and they already had some momentum coming off that last game. And Ryan Day kind of felt that and realized we need to get up on Oregon fast, because Oregon can score quickly. And being able to get up and score quickly might help you today. It helped today, but it may help you down the road as the Buckeyes' quest to win a national championship continues.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And you mentioned like the biggest thing for Oregon is they have their game plan, right? They still want to run the ball first and work off play action. They do it in a different way, obviously. But you look at in a situation like that, when you as an offense try to score quickly and sort of be the snake, be the aggressor, you can get your opponent out of their game plan quickly, and that's exactly what happened. I'm looking at the stats right now. James only had 7 carries. Whittington had 6 for 3 total yards. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel, the sack yardage gets factored in there as well. They had -23 as a team, but that's not who Oregon is. Dylan Gabriel's not supposed to throw the ball 41 times. That's just not supposed to happen against anybody. So the balance was off, and I think because Ohio State was able to land those heavyweight those punches quickly, those haymakers kept going. Like I was at the Peach Bowl. And we come back up in the press conference, and it's all quiet. We're supposed to be professional in the press box, right? I look at the score. I'm like, holy shit, it's 30-0. Where did that come from? And I think Dan Lanning probably thought the same thing. He's like, this is not how it's supposed to roll. So I think you had him in a corner from the get-go, and that is a credit to Chip Kelly, that offense, the game plan for to have the guts to go out and let it rip. In a big spot, and it worked. And man, they dictated the style, and styles make fights, and Oregon was not ready for that style.
Yeah, and all credit for to Ohio State for and they said it on the broadcast, but again, as you guys know how it is. I don't know, whatever team you watch the closest, you watch a team become who they are now, whether that's bad or good or whatever. We watched Jeremiah Smith become start figuring things out and become a monster. This is not the same guy that Oregon played in that first matchup. That guy was really good. This guy was something different. The confidence, the physicality. I know I'm gonna, we'll have plenty of time to praise Will Howard here in a minute. What a great game he played as a quarterback. But just for Ohio State to know what they had in practice, me and Jay again say all the time, what was Ryan Day watching in practice? Why did he think this? They knew what they had in practice, and they knew the advantages they had in some of the the physicality and the man-on-man matchups, and they used them. Again, defensive line did a great job of making Gabriel play from the pocket and making him worry. And another thing they did, and I think this gets lost in another, it did get brought up one time on a podcast, but is that when Ohio State was tackling people, it just seemed a little meaner. And there was always one, it was all clean, but it was always one or two guys landing on Gabriel when they got tackled. They weren't pushing out of bounds. They were tackling him and landing on him. And that wears on a team. And I really thought they did a good job being physical. I thought they did a great job with the defensive line rotations. I mean, this is the best coaching job that we have saw the Ryan Day coaching staff do since he's been here. I promise everybody that first half. The second half was about hanging on and not losing. And they made some mistakes. And I think Lanning actually, I joked about it in our little chat. I thought he coached a great game. He stayed calm, and he punted in the second half there. And I'm like, wow, what is he doing? And I said, wait a minute.
Waving the white flag. That's not like him either.
Yeah, no. I said, and then, but the one time I said, you know what, Jeff? I said, he's way smarter than you. Let's see what happens. Sure enough, we get the one holding call of the game. I won't even go into that because it's just not worth it. It was a weird called game anyway. And so they get the ball back, and next thing you know, a quick touchdown. And I'm like, he stayed calm. And I mean, then it kind of got away from him, but I was like, he actually kind of kept his team thinking about a possible comeback. I mean, I know I was. So credit to that Oregon coaching staff. They're awesome. That team was really good.
They didn't give up. And, I was driving back and I was listening to the national broadcast, when they went for it on 4th and 5, or whatever it was at the end of the first half and scored. And the radio guy, the play-by-play Kesher was saying Lanning's definitely going to kick a field goal. They just need punts. And I'm like, no, he's going to go for it. That's how Dan operates. And, going into halftime, you could sense, at least I could sense through the radio driving home, that that there was some momentum. And then for them to come out and score right out of the gate in the first drive, it's not, when it's 34-0, you don't expect there to be a comeback, but it's like watching Dumb and Dumber, right? When Mary Swanson says 1 in a million and Lloyd Christmas says, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah. And you're correct.
It was legit.
And to fill you in, I know because you were busy too, you might not have got to see it. So the last Buckeye drive of the first half, there was about 4 minutes left on the clock, if I remember correct. And they were running effectively. They were moving. We were all like, run some time off, kick a field goal. So they wound up getting a field goal. But what was lost, there was two plays in a row. They took shots into the end zone that were incompletions and basically handed Oregon. Well, you know how it is. They handed them 80 seconds on the clock. Yeah. And Oregon scores at the end of the first half with no time on the clock. And when they took those shots to the end zone, I look over at my wife and she gets tired of hearing it. And I'm like, that was a coaching mistake. That was the one thing you couldn't give them was time. And it wasn't a realistic shot. It was atypical of what Howard and the guys do. And it was weird. It just looked like it was like the two most abnormal plays of the game. But again, Lanning does his thing, goes down there. And here's what I tell everybody: you guys watch enough football. I'm like, people actually text me at halftime. I had the nerve to start talking about the Texas game. I'm like, what are you people thinking? Because I always say this: if Ohio State could do that in the first half, there's no reason Oregon couldn't do it in the second half. So, as long as there's the equal time left, anything can happen. So, that's like I say, credit to Oregon for fighting a good fight and a great season. Oh yeah, I want to say that it was a fantastic season. I know it's got a stink for them right now, and it stings and all that, but it was great.
We have made it about 15 minutes into the show. I've only had a few mentions of Jeremiah Smith. We'll dive into his monster game in the Rose Bowl next. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming Ohio State game using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkouts. The best part? When I won, I got paid instantly. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. As our Locked On Buckeyes squad show rolls on after Ohio State's 41-21 win over Oregon in the Rose Bowl, Jeremiah Smith, I think we've all at some point tweeted something about him maybe being a cheat code or maybe being unreal or maybe he's a Michael Jordan of college football right now. I don't know. We have all tweeted something or said something in amazement about Jeremiah Smith in the way that he plays football. And today, once again, he reminded everybody in the country that if he's guarded only by one person, it's over. Will Howard's arm is not the best arm in the world, but Will Howard realizes I just got to put the ball in the area. Put it in his own zip code. He'll figure out a way to get that thing. And Barrett, you've seen a lot of football. We've all seen a lot of football. But some of the things we saw from Jeremiah Smith today are things we'll be talking about for a very long time.
Yeah, I live in SEC country here in Atlanta, and I was at the Alabama-Georgia game, and, Ryan Williams was sort of the talk of the town, man. Talk of the first, half of the season, really all season. Ryan Williams is a great player, but he's nothing compared to Jeremiah Smith. I mean, this guy's on a different level. He looks like he has an AARP card. He's been around the league for 10 years. I mean, he looks like a grown man, and you saw that in this game. The body control is just absolutely ridiculous. And he does. I mean, with him and Abuka, it's easy to make Will Howard look good. Now, that's not to say Will Howard isn't good, but when you can throw it up to Jeremiah Smith and know that you can be off by a little bit or a lot, and he's still going to pull it down, it's pretty amazing. And, throughout this game and throughout really the entire season, I've always kind of watched some of those games and thought, why are they not putting two guys on him all the time? I know there are weapons elsewhere for Ohio State, and that's why Ohio State is where it's at right now. But that's Jeremiah Smith. It's almost like what Penn State did to Ashton Genty. Put 13 guys in the box and say, dude, you're not beating us. Don't care whatever else happens, but you're not going to beat us. And it seemed like teams that got blown out by Ohio State almost universally thought that they could get away with singling him in big spots. And I just don't understand it. I mean, that dude is, in terms of young receivers, obviously Ryan Williams is the one that people are talking about, alongside. But Randy Moss, some of these dudes, like he is up there in terms of all-time greats.
Yeah, it was so impressive. And what I like, about him is he is aware of who he is too. Mm-hmm. He's aware of, when he's covered, he knows that he's still open. The speed, he runs pretty good routes for a young guy, and the way they use him, he's a threat in the running game. I saw the one, he ran like kind of into we were in Wrigley Field, he ran towards us on that big run he had, and there was a moment to where he got, he's about halfway through the run. He's coming right at our section. And that's when it clicked. I was like, oh, this is different. This just looks different. He just, everybody else in the field, like, even though he's not the biggest person overall in the field, it just felt that way. But for him to be able to use those skills, we see so many of these guys that we call freaks and stuff, and it never really happens. This guy's put it both together. And that's when you wind up with like the guy I have in mind as far as this guy's, in mind as far as what I see is just like Charles Johnson. You know what I mean? Or they said Julio Jones. Great comparison as far as the combination of skill set and size. And
Julio, when he was a freshman, was also like thick and cut and looked like an adult. You know, I'll be honest, Brian Williams looks like a kid. Like
he does. He does.
You know,
and he is a kid.
I mean, that's not a knock against him.
Is he 18 yet? Is Williams 18
I think
yet?
he is 18 now.
Real close.
But I mean, you look at Jeremiah Smith and you're like, that guy looks like he's 30, he's 26 and has been in an NFL weight room for 4 years.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Jeff. I'm sorry. I was just going to say for Ohio State to have the confidence to just be like, we're going to go ahead and tell you he's our best player and use him like our best player. And meanwhile, Egbuka has another great game. That guy is going to make an NFL team so happy that he's their, we'll say, third receiver or whatever. He just, another catch in traffic. It bounces off the defensive back's hand, and he still concentrates and catches the ball. It just, his blocking, his just everything that those two guys do on the field was really impressive to see today. And for Chip Kelly to use them, as Ohio State fans, we beat our head against the wall saying, like, you've got these guys out there. Why is the ball not in the air? Not today. Great job.
Since we're talking about multiple guys that kind of stood out to us today, I think another guy that's popped into my head, he's one that was actually down in SEC last year. It's Caleb Downs. It seems like every time we watch him play, he just makes these plays that look very simple to him. But for us, it's like, how does he do that over and over and over? And credit to Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles has done a phenomenal job of re-engineering the Buckeyes defense, and we have seen Caleb Downs be all over the field. There's so many times, even during the regular broadcast, you can tell that he sees stuff before the snap of the ball. Once the guy goes in motion, he knows exactly what's going to happen. And there was one play, I think it was a sweep right, a toss right, or maybe it was a screen. Something was a quick pass, quick motion to the right. He's there right there in the backfield right when the ball carrier gets to the line of scrimmage. And I'm thinking, how in the world does he do this over and over and over? And I mentioned his past stop along the way because I know, Barry, you're down there in the South, and you got the privilege of seeing him and covering his games last year. And now us at Ohio State, we're seeing him week after week after week. And I'm thinking, this guy, it doesn't matter if it's Oregon, doesn't matter if it's Tennessee, doesn't matter if it's Michigan. He is always in the right spot at the right time, play after play after play.
And it's anticipation. You mentioned anticipation before the snap. I think there was a play in the second half of tonight's game where Oregon tried to swing it out on a little wide receiver bubble, and he could tell immediately not only that he was going to be uncovered, that he was going to be the one that made the play, but exactly how the blocks were going to be positioned. Mm-hmm. I mean, and going right off the hip of his own player to make a stop. And that's not stuff that you teach, because you have to anticipate stuff like that, but you also have to know how to execute it. And he does at such a high level. And yeah, I mean, seeing him last year, there's no doubt he was the best defensive player on Alabama's team last year. Obviously, I think it's the same this year for Ohio State. Yeah. There's a reason that he got all the NIL money last year and all the NIL money this year. And I guarantee you, there are going to be a lot of people throwing NIL money at him right now. So Ohio State better break out that check. But honestly, in terms of best players on the field, it's him and Jeremiah Smith. And to have a guy like that, especially in Caleb Downs, he's not the biggest guy, right? There are safeties who are bigger than him. And honestly, I think there are safeties who are faster than him. But for him to know when to explode towards the hole, to stick his nose in run support, and have absolutely no qualms about it, despite being, not as big as other safeties. It really just, he's a perfect safety for that team. Perfect player for Ohio State. He kind of encompasses the entire roster.
You just nailed it. He's absolutely the perfect safety for a Jim Knowles defense. Yes. I recommend to anybody that can watch the All-22 and just watch Downs. Just watch him. Like Barrett said, the anticipation is what stands out. I don't know how much film this guy watches in a week. I don't know. He must not sleep. For him to scout the plays, he had, I think, four 4 different times in the first half, the ball hit him in the hands or the pads. Like, he was a part of the game as much as the offense was. He was frustrating. He's sideline to sideline, literally. He tackles up the middle, just unreal. And he lets another guy named Lathan Ransom play his game. And that guy 3 or 4 times a game, he makes him a better player. Downs in the second half didn't get to do as much because, of course, they're going to go into, an umbrella defense and try to keep things in front of them. And he's going to do. But that first half, the first quarter especially, Caleb Downs was absolutely – I think he was more important than Jeremiah Smith on the field. I really do, because it's every play that he made a difference. Incredible find. And Barrett even bringing up the thought of losing Caleb Downs is actually got me upset already.
Everybody's a free agent now.
They sure are.
Think about the calls that Jeremiah Smith's going to get after the season.
I know. Yeah, they bet whoever Jeremiah Smith wants as a quarterback. I don't care. I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes. See what you can do, Ohio State, to keep these guys around. It's a new world in college football. It's a scary world. But yeah, as of right now, I'm riding the high. And shout out to actually. Jay knows this, but a guy that my son grew up with and played football with is actually the director of NIL at Ohio State. So I'm so proud of what Matt's done, up there since this all started and what they've put together. And I'm completely thankful for everything they did in the offseason because it's something to see. But yeah, another guy, Jay, that you'll want to talk about, Cody Simon, another back-to-back. We didn't think he had these games in us. No. And it's finally hit at the end of his career. Played another great game, another downhill game, another great tackling game that we weren't sure. I don't think 6 months ago that we thought was in him. So shout out to Cody Simon, and I apologize. Everything I've said, man, you've got it done in 2 playoff games. So all credit to you. And I always say this. If you make yourself better, I give you full credit for studying, for practicing, for working out. All the things that you put in behind the scenes shows up on the field. It's not just talent, rolled out there and see what happens. So shout out to the linebackers, that have been maligned and for showing up again this week.
You mentioned Cody Simon, and I was thinking about Lathan Ransom, which one of you two brought up earlier, because there was a play, Lathan Ransom. He would have been basically lined up with the right tackle, but in his safety spot. And at the snap of the ball, he comes downhill like he's a linebacker and pops the ball carrier at the line of scrimmage. It was a run play, handoff, simple handoff. And I'm thinking, the film you guys have to watch to know that stuff, but also to have the instincts to immediately realize that's me. You're going to have the free path. There's no blocker going to come for you, and you're just coming in downhill and just laying the wood. The safeties at Ohio State hit like linebackers. And I think it's one of the things that really was evident today during tonight's game. Even in the first half, Jordan James went out in the first half, and then there was another receiver. I don't know if he even played in the game. They didn't play at all. There are other Oregon Ducks players where you're realizing how they're not used to being hit that hard. And that's one thing about when you get this deep into a playoff. Now, Oregon had about a month off, so they had that amount of rest, and it could have been rusty for them as well. But when Ohio State played Tennessee, very physical game. It was also cold outside. Now you're in Pasadena, but you're already ready to play more physical football. Yeah. And these Buckeyes are hitting people so hard over and over and over again. And Jeff, I want to turn it to you very, very quickly. Got a break here coming up after this. But the way that they're playing and the physicality they're bringing every single week, that's one thing that's a benefit for them in the future. But I think it's one thing that really helped them slow down Oregon's attack, because if your receiver getting hit over the middle over and over and over, or a ball carrier getting hit at the line of scrimmage over and over and over, at some point you're not going to want the ball, because if you get that ball, you're going to get hit hard. You're going to be limping to the sidelines. And these Buckeyes safeties, linebackers, D linemen, everybody, they're out there, they're head hunting, not literally, but they're head hunting and trying to just take you down as hard as they can.
Yeah, I know there's another show that's going to discuss the Oregon side of this. And again, shout out to them. This is not one of these disrespect shows to where I'm going to slander Oregon. But I will say, if I was an Oregon fan, that was the first thing I'd bring up was the opposite of that, Jay, is why were you not ready for it? When they hit you in the mouth, why were you not ready for it? And why did you let it keep happening? And why did your players show some frustration early, like what you say with some hits? And again, all clean and, across the board. And a credit to where this might be where Ryan Day's NFL experience kicked in, is to where he apparently ramped his team up for the end of the season. He might have sacrificed a couple big wins along the way, but at this point they look as healthy and as physical and as lean and mean, as we've seen this team. This is like, now here's the difference. If they don't make the playoffs or if they lose the first playoff games, we waste all that and we're having a different conversation about the most wasted season in Ohio State history, but we're not. It's worked out. And Ryan Day's, I just got to credit where credit's due is the bottom line with the physicality. Credit where credit's due. They showed up and kicked Oregon in the teeth and held on. It was impressive. Again, it was impressive. And this isn't bragging on Ohio State. It was an impressive victory.
Impressive is a word that I think about when I think about what Will Howard did tonight in the Rose Bowl. We'll dive into number 18's performance against Oregon next. This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. As our Locked On Buckeyes squad show rolls on after Ohio State's 41-21 win over Oregon, Barrett, one thing I think about when I think about Will Howard's performance today was the anticipation that he had during some of the throws. Now, I understand that you were away, busy during the first half of the game, but I still think you got to see some of those throws that were anticipated and also some of the ways that you can see his preparation really showing up in a big way during Ohio State's win in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I was never really the big Will Howard guy. I didn't think he was ready. Yeah, well, I just didn't think he was ready. I didn't think he was that. I mean, he lost his job at Kansas State to Avery Johnson. I mean, and Avery Johnson's good, no doubt. No doubt. But I think the last few games, it's just trusting his offensive line, right? I think that when he had his bad games, he tried to do too much, and when he just let the games come to him and trusted Jeremiah Smith, trusted the guys, he was at his best. But I think that Michigan game, he lost all confidence in his offensive line during that game. Just had, and he couldn't get it back. So going into the Tennessee game, to go through that game and have it suddenly click that it's working and that you can trust those guys, that momentum carried over to this game. And I think that's really all that is there is to it. I mean, look, Will Howard still physically is not the best quarterback in the world, but he's effective and he's efficient when he's comfortable. And they've done a great job making him comfortable, not just, in the pocket, but also giving him easy throws to Jeremiah Smith early, giving him easy throws to Emeka Egbuka early. When they do that, when Chip Kelly does that, it's just like the spark goes off and he becomes this superstar. And so that's a credit to Chip Kelly, a credit to the offensive line in general, because that was a disaster late in the season.
Yeah.
So all of those things coming together at the right time. You mentioned last segment that Ryan Day's NFL experience might have helped them sort of get ready for this run. The offensive line success and their ability to get Will Howard comfy quickly is what makes this team its best, what puts them at their ceiling. And certainly that's what we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you touched on something there, Barrett, and you're right about everything you saw about Will Howard. I mean, I liked Will Howard a lot, and I knew that all he had to do was not screw this up, and we're going to have a good season. But then now is when we would figure out what you're made of. So, how many times we talk about quarterbacks? It's like we know what you can do most of the game. You're going to have to make 4 or 5 throws a game to win a game. And he did it again. The one day Egbuka was amazing. He threw a first down. It was a first down to Jeremiah Smith, but it was one of the best throws of the day. And then he hit all the open throws, but he made 3 or 4 throws that were like, okay, that was the difference in the game right there. And he did it with confidence. And what I would say say is that I don't know if people want to hear this on either side of the fight, but that Michigan game was the best thing to happen to Will Howard for this playoff run because he got live bullets thrown at him. He got baptized by a real NFL level defense with quality players, and he played with his head down, and he played looking, at their feet, and he played worried, and he had the worst game as a Buckeye. There's no doubt about that. And but he told us he was going to take that and learn from it, and he obviously did. He is 100%. The confidence he's played, and if you just look at his head and his body language, he played with his eyes up and his head up the whole game, and it's really impressive what he's done. Again, another one to where I give credit where credit's due. You made yourself better in a matter of a month. I mean, this is a different team than played Michigan a month ago. And my wife was the first one to say it tonight. She goes, they wouldn't have done this without that Michigan loss. I'm telling you right now, because it would have worked out different. They'd have had to go play Oregon again too early. After just a week after Michigan, they wouldn't be here right now without it. So I believe that in my heart. It stinks, but I am happy to have 2 playoff wins under our belt and going into Texas with a chance to win the national title. And it's because of Will Howard. I mean, the quarterback of your team is the most important part of the team. Doesn't have to be the best player, but it's the most important position on the field. And Ohio State had to get it right. They brought Howard in, and so far so good. Now it's kind of a house money situation now.
That Will Howard thing and the way that he played in that game against Michigan, it was bad. It was easily the worst thing that's happened to him in his Ohio State career. It also was the best thing for him. I didn't even think that they trusted his arm in the way that they're showing it right now. I can eliminate the Tennessee game or the previous 12 games before that. They have a trust in his arm, Barrett, that people like you and I and even Jeff that were kind of skeptical about Will Howard coming in and what the offense might look like. I didn't think his arm ever looked like this. I didn't think they had the trust.
We thought he was going to be a runner. We thought this guy was going to have 1,000 yards rushing.
We thought he'd be the same guy at Kansas State.
And now we're seeing a guy that's trusted to throw really long passes to elite receivers that they can make plays, but you got to get it to him. And he's getting it to him over and over. Sometimes they're short, but the guys are still able to make plays there. But they have a trust in his arm right now that I think in the game against Texas in about a week and a half from now, we're going to see more of those types of throws because of how much trust they have in Will Howard's arm.
Yeah, I never thought this would happen. I mean, I just really didn't. I figured going into the season that it was going to look a lot like the Kansas State offense, obviously with better players, but you would get 10, 15 designed runs from Will Howard, every single game. They might look like read options, but they're design runs for Will Howard. I mean, just that he's good at that.
Yeah,
he still probably is good at that. But they don't have to do that. They don't need to do that. And it's pretty mind-boggling to me because I was very, very anti Will Howard, but he has proved himself to be a very, very efficient passer. They trust him, but I think most importantly, he trusts himself. Because I would imagine going into the season, I wasn't at media day, didn't ask him, but I would imagine that if you caught him at an honest moment, this was a new world that maybe he was not necessarily prepared for, and mentally that he kind of looked around and said, this is not, I'm far placed from, we're not in Kansas anymore. I can't believe I used that pun, but we're not in Kansas anymore. It's different. And to his credit, he has taken it and run with it. So yeah, it's awesome to see it.
And this is where I can tell from the local viewpoint, a guy that lives 45 minutes away from, where Will Howard, practices football, the way that he took to, the Buckeye Nation and the way he's embraced it and the way he's acted, like he didn't have to do any of that. And we love him. I mean, he is a true Buckeye, forever in our hearts. I know it's going to be one and done, but he took to it. He does everything. It really feels like what a great fit. And I don't know if that always happens. I don't know if even, that happens all over the country. We see these transfers, and I don't know if they all look like they belong there. It doesn't matter whether they play good or not. Will Howard belongs here. It feels like he's played here 4 years. I mean, we love this guy, and we see all the limitations. And I think we all thought that it was going to be Judkins, Henderson, and Howard running for maybe 3,000 yards this year, and that's what this offense was going to look like under Chip Kelly. And again, credit to the coach. Chip Kelly had some stinkers this year, and credit to him for being like, okay, this is what plays are going to work. This is what plays I'm going to call. And turning Will Howard into CJ Stroud has been – Will Howard had over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first quarter of a Rose Bowl. That happened. He outplayed Dylan Gabriel in a Rose Bowl. It's incredible how he's accepted the coaching, and the coaches have coached. I don't know if we've ever seen a quarterback this late in his career turn into a different type of quarterback that he has here, because we're all like you go back and watch the Kansas State tape and watch him running, and you're like, where's that guy? Not that it's been bad, but we're all like, where's that guy? And it's been really weird. And what faith they had to have, the coaching staff had to have. And the truth is, Ohio State's got the talent to let Will Howard learn that this season. They had a lot of games to where they weren't pressed to win, they weren't down, and they were able to turn him into this quarterback. And it's truly remarkable what they've done with him. And again, credit to coach staff, and mostly credit to Will Howard for apparently doing your homework, man. Like, good job.
Jeff, I want to stick with you here quickly, because we haven't done any real true conversations about the Buckeyes D-line today, pass rush. Let's just go pass rush in general, not just defensive linemen. The first time these two teams played, Ohio State had 0 sacks, 1 tackle for loss. In the game today, as I pull this up here quickly, the numbers are going to blow you out of the water. They had 8 sacks, 13 TFLs, and it just seemed like they were just in the backfield consistently. Now, there were times that Oregon was able to stonewall the rush and were able to get the pass off, but more often than not, the Buckeyes' pass rush was in the backfield, in the face of Dylan Gabriel. Jeff, why do you think they were so successful getting pressure on Gabriel tonight?
In all seriousness, they looked like they were just in really good shape. They weren't getting tired. The rotation looked really good. They had fresh legs out there. I mean, Williams is for a big man, he looked fresh, all the way through the first half. So I think they just had high energy. I think a lot. It was one of these weird games to where it almost looked like the turf was different for Ohio State. Like we all saw the Alabama game. When that game started, because of the rain and everything, Alabama looked like they were playing on literally a different field than Michigan was. And that's what this looked at the beginning of the game. Like Sawyer's get off was awesome. JTT was pushing, the tackles back like we've been asking for 4 years. It just looked like they were rested and they were prepared, and they had a game plan, because it was it wasn't a lot of stunts and schemes like you would think. It was a lot of bull rushing and collapsing the pocket and chasing. And I don't know how many times Gabriel was chased down and either got rid of the ball or maybe completed one or whatever, that those guys were on his heels. Like I know it's hard to say. It was even worse than it sounds with the stats, but I just give credit for those guys just getting them physically ready for the game. I just can't get past like how much different they've looked in the last 2 weeks. I know I keep saying it, but you guys know when you watch a team this close, I'm like, who is this team? And where have you been my whole life?
Well, it's fascinating too. And I hate that college football does this, but sack yards are counted in rushing yards. So you look at their negative 23 rushing yards, that number pops out. It's like, wow, that is crazy. But this is still a pound the rock team with Gabriel and with Jordan James and Noah Whittington. You take sack yardage out of it. Just take the sack yardage out of it. They averaged 1.7 yards per carry. Man. That seems impossible for that team. I mean, I know they had to kind of give up on it, but that is not that's stuff of legend. For a team like Ohio State to do, any team to do that to an Oregon team that is built upon pounding the rock in a very diverse and unique way. It was if they get that performance the next 2 games, they're going to blow whoever they play out in the national championship game, and certainly blow Texas out.
Yeah, and you touched on it real quick. Oregon didn't abandon the run because of the score either. They abandoned it because they couldn't run.
They couldn't do it.
No,
because I watched and I kept waiting. I was like, the Oregon will stick with this. Like we said about Lanning, he was patient. Like he's going to stick with it, and they just couldn't slip tackles. It was really just. It was a great if we just have to say one thing for the defense, it was a great tackling game. When they got a hold of the guy, they tackled him. Simple as that. I mean, football sometimes is as simple as tackle the guy in front of you when you get a hold of him, and good things are going to happen. And it just kept over and over, whether it was the linebackers or Ransom or, the defensive ends. It was just like I say, they were physically ready for the game. They didn't look – I thought they looked a little overmatched by Oregon the first meeting in the season, and that was gone. They look bigger, they look stronger. Maybe it's the Rose Bowl, the way they cover it, how great it looks, but they looked like the defensive line we thought we were going to have, that we haven't had a lot. And I don't know. I can't wait to hear, like, when I get to go back and listen to the Oregon show, like their side of it. And really, for someone that I watched Oregon maybe 4 times, but I don't study them to see what went wrong on their end of it. Cause I'm as curious as anybody, what brought this out of Ohio State and what the matchups were. And maybe there's injuries I don't know about. I have no idea what was going on out there, but that first quarter was an absolute wrecking ball for Ohio State.
There's one question in my head about Ryan Day, and it might be something that some of you out there might be thinking about, what this game means for Ryan Day's future. We'll talk about that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. Simply visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank y'all for tapping in and joining us for our live Locked on Buckeyes squad show after Ohio State's 41-21 win over Oregon in the Rose Bowl. The Buckeyes will play the Texas Longhorns on January 10th, I believe, in the Cotton Bowl. It's also maybe a preview, not really a preview, it's different quarterback next year, of what Texas and Ohio State will be in the season opener in 2025. One thing I think about when it comes to Ryan Day is his future. I've been critical. I've just been critical. Barrett, I know for a fact you've been critical of him.
Mm-hmm.
We've all have our own thoughts about Ryan Day's tenure at Ohio State. In year 6, many people didn't think Ohio State would make it to the Rose Bowl. Many people didn't think the Buckeyes would make it to the semifinal round of the playoff, but here they are. A Rose Bowl win. They beat Tennessee. They're playing Texas in about a week and a half. Barrett, I'm going to start with you because I know you were at the Peach Bowl today, and I know you've talked to people about Ryan Day. What does this win mean for Ryan Day's future in Columbus?
I mean, it solidifies. If it was ever in doubt, it solidifies it. I think the biggest question now is how much you're going to pay him, because, this whole situation and we know what happened with, losing to Michigan. And it was an interesting situation because you can't beat your rival, but you can give yourself a chance to win the national championship. And that's exactly where we are. And so I think it became and it has become a debate of what matters more. And I mean, you guys are, in tune with the fan base, and I know a lot of the commenters are as well. To me, it feels more like the older crew would be all about the rivalry. The younger crew would be more about a national championship. And I think now, after seeing how this has gone, everybody's floating to his side, because you lose to Michigan, but this is what this team can be. He's no longer a guy that can't win the big one anymore. And I felt that moniker wasn't fair to him anyway. Okay, they lost to Bama in the COVID year, whatever. They lost to Georgia on a last-second field goal miss when Ohio State was the second best team in the country by far. I mean, they would have boat raced TCU too. So, if you have a guy who consistently gets you in position to win a national championship, that's all you should want. You're not going to be a dynasty. You're not going to be Alabama from, the Nick Saban era. You're going to be in the mix for a championship every single year. That's all that needs to happen. That's all that anybody can ask for. And I think Ryan Day has proven now that he can win big games, plural, in a big, big way with pressure on him, and can recruit at the level you need to have to win a national championship on a consistent basis. So he's built the perfect program. He has built Bama. He has built Georgia. It's the same thing as those guys, just without a national championship, which is okay because it's hard to do that.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right about that. I'm still critical, and a lot of it's some of his coaching style. But the argument's always been for us on our side of it is that he doesn't beat teams that are as good as his team. Well, now 2 weeks, 2 playoff games in a row. He's walked through a couple really talented football teams, and by talent, I mean literally the talent level. And then now you're seeing, like we've talked about all night, about the Buckeye talent. So you're like, oh, he did build us a championship team. He just wasn't using it correctly. It is a tough one. I'm going to just ride this high and say, hey, I'm good with Ryan Day as of right now. It's probably going to end first week of next year, maybe the first quarter of next week. I don't know. That's why we're Ohio State fans. I am the Ohio State. Everybody keeps telling me, like, you're the Ohio State fan Saban's talking about. I'm like, I sure am. But this is why, because games like this, I get to enjoy to an immense proportion. So I'm going to get almost 3 weeks of enjoying games before the Texas game. And then I'll be the same way. I'll be screaming and yelling and, second guessing.
Fire everybody.
Yep. So that's just how we are. It's college football. That's why we love it.
Exactly.
When I think about this for Ryan Day, I think there's still going to be people out there that are going to say he has to beat Michigan no matter what. Even if the Buckeyes happen to win the Natty this year, you lost to Michigan, that's going to be a negative mark on the season. And they're going to say, well, yeah, we got the national championship. I bought a shirt. I bought a hat. I bought some things for my kids. But we lost to Michigan, so the season is still kind of negative. And it's going to be, I think it's for a lot of people out there, it's going to take some time for them to realize this is more of an NFL model. And with me growing up being a Colts fan, there were years that I was really upset the Colts couldn't beat the Patriots. But also I remember, Peyton Manning didn't do well when he had a bye in the NFL playoffs, or he got to the playoffs and he lost. Sometimes those playoff losses stung more than the Patriots losses did. And I think there's going to be fans eventually that'll say, yeah, the Michigan loss was bad. It sucks. But why can't we get past the first round of the playoffs? Or why can't we get to the semifinal round, or whatever the playoff format looks like in the future? And I think eventually wins like this, and then also situations like this year, will help you kind of shape and view seasons differently, because this is a quickly changing landscape of college football. And Barrett, it may take some people a long time to get over that old way of thinking, but eventually I think they will.
Yeah, they will. I think it has to be that way. Just because Michigan might have figured things out late in the season. We saw what they did, and Bama's still not very good. But I mean, you're still playing teams that have good athletes, that have good players. I mean, I know everybody wants to be perfect all the time, and it's just never going to happen. And I think it's interesting what you said, Jeff, about Ryan Day not being able to beat teams that are equal in talent. Well, that's like 2 teams in the country.
Right. Yeah.
3 teams in the country.
That's true.
And they're coached well too. I think for Ohio State, yeah, I mean, the mindset for everybody is going to change, right? That the playoff is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And for the health of the school, for the roster, for the continued development of the program, and, especially for the bottom line. And if Michigan can say, yeah, you won the national championship, but you didn't beat us. All right.
I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah. Fine.
I'll say something one more real quick. And that, and this is kind of what we're all saying here. Credit to the coaching staff and the players for getting, because trust me, as a Ohio State fan, that every Michigan loss is gut wrenching, but this was another in the line of it for these players to pick themselves up and play like they have the last 2 games after thoroughly, so upset about that Michigan loss. It really, really did bother them. But for them, the main thing was, I kept saying, don't let Michigan beat you twice. And they sure have it. So credit to the staff and the players for being able to get past a loss like that, as much as it meant to them. And then again, just like Barrett said, they've given Buckeye Nation back 2 playoff victories. Like, it's awesome right now. Like, nobody's cares more about the outcome of an Ohio State game than I do. And I can speak for, lunatic Buckeye Nation. It's awesome. This is a lot of fun. We're having it tomorrow. When we all go to work, that's all we're going to talk about. And it just, the sun comes out brighter. It's just a better day that we live in. And now, we've got another week of that. So just thanks to the team and thanks to the coaching staff and everybody for this is great. This is really a lot of fun. And I get to do this show with you guys. So that's fantastic. Anytime me and Jay get to hang out, it's awesome. Man. And Barrett, it's been great to work with you. So this is awesome, man. Jeff's having a good time.
Jeff, I'm going to ask you something here about you guys. I'm going to start with Jeff first. I just went over to FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On, and I wanted to try to get an early look at the Cotton Bowl about a week and a half from now. Jeff, what do you think the spread currently is for the Cotton Bowl?
It'll basically be like a home field advantage. So we'll say 2.5 Texas.
You think Texas is favored by 2.5?
Yeah.
Barrett?
I think you're going to get the home field.
I'm going to say Ohio State by 6.
Woo!
You're the closest. It's 5.5. Ohio State minus 5.5 right now.
Let's go.
The over/under set at 54.5.
Way over.
My current lean,
know.
and I'm going to go. I'm going to go first. Jeff, you second. Barrett third. We're going to close up shop. My current lane is that Ohio State's going to win the game because they found something that works. They're leaning into their best players, and they have a whatever it takes mindset, and they're going to take that mindset into that game in the Cotton Bowl and win that game. Now, it's not my official pick. That's just my current lean right now. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm leaning Ohio State right now, basically because I watched the Arizona State-Texas game, which was awesome. And I think Ohio State can do pretty much everything Arizona State did and maybe a little better in some cases. So if the blueprint's going to be to grind it out and be tough and take your shot when it's there. I mean, Ohio State can do that as well as anybody. And Texas has shown some flaws in the past month. I like them. So I'll lean Ohio State, but I definitely am not overconfident. I just have one real quick question for Barrett. Maybe he can add on because he got to watch Texas play. I wonder how he thinks this version of Ohio State's defense just matches up yay or nay against Texas offense.
Very well. They match up very well. I would take Ohio State by 10. More than that, maybe. Texas they are so average most of the time. They have spurts where they're really, really good. Like beginning of this game against Arizona State, they got up 14 on a punt return and a quick 2-play drive. And then nothing. And it wasn't because they weren't trying. I mean, Arizona State essentially dominated that game from the get-go.
Yeah.
Even though they had to score 16 straight in the fourth quarter to win it. I think from a defensive standpoint, when you have Caleb Downs over the top, which is what they're going to do, got nothing to worry about there. And Jaden Blue and Wisner, both of those guys, they're talented, but they're so inconsistent. And now Kelvin Banks got hurt. Sounds like he's going to be okay, but it didn't look like he was 100% when he came back in that game today. I just think Ohio State, even when it's on its B game, is better than Texas. And, I said this about Texas all season long, really. Their floor is pretty high. They're okay, but their ceiling's not. When they're on at their best, they're still not that good. And there's something about Quinn Ewers. I know he ended with 330 or whatever it was today. I mean, he is so remarkably average almost all of the time. And I think it's because he's in his own head. I think he gets frustrated because the staff won't let him unleash it deep. And when they do, he believes in himself way more than he should. The interception he threw to Jevin Alexander in the fourth quarter, which set up the game-tying touchdown for Arizona State. I mean, there were two guys. It wasn't like they were bracketing him. They were literally on him.
Yes.
It's dude, what are you doing? You're not that. Nobody is that good. And I think in those moments, because their offense rarely gives him chances to do that, he kind of freaks out a little bit and says, "By damn, I'm going to do this. I don't care if it's the right thing to do or the wrong. I'm going to show you how good I am." He's still a good quarterback, but nobody's that good.
All right, I'm just going to throw in real quick, so I want to sound like the smartest guy in the world after the game. Manning gives him a better chance to beat Ohio State than yours because of
man.
But I'm saying he is the worst mix for Ohio State because that defensive line does not want to chase around a quarterback.
Arch can't.
But I think that I think that's what, like, we want to know where Ewers is and we want to go after him and fall on top of him. I don't know if we can do that with a mobile quarterback. So
objectively watching Arch on the sideline,
oh, really?
2 straight games at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I'm jealous of his hair. I'm jealous of most people's hair, but that dude has got that dude's got a salad, man. It is.
So I can't wait to see the game. I can't make it down there. It's a little too far to travel for this one, man. That's what a matchup. What a matchup. I mean, we're talking Ohio State, Texas, 2 of the biggest brands in the world. A playoff game. I don't know how I feel about the Thursday, or what is it? Friday? It's going to be a Friday.
Thursday.
But it's a Thursday night game.
Is it Thursday?
Yeah.
It's still
Thursday.
weird. That's still weird, but I'll figure it out. I'll worry about Friday morning when it gets here.
I'll be there. Going to the casino the night before. Excited about
Good
that.
for you.
Nice.
I love that stadium. I would love to be there. I went down there for the TCU game and had a time of my life.
I appreciate Barrett and Jeff joining us here on the Locked On Buckeye Squad Show after Ohio State's 41-21 win over Oregon in the Rose Bowl. We just talked about it. You got our early thoughts at the end of this squad show about Ohio State's matchup with Texas in the Cotton Bowl about a week and a half from now. Make sure you follow and check out Barrett on the College Football Smothered and Covered show. It's covering college football, doing a phenomenal job there. We're going to try to get Jeff on the pod at some point, maybe this week, maybe next week, to talk about Ohio State's win over Oregon, and always looking forward to that Texas game. Follow me, follow all of us. Check out Locked On Buckeyes. We'll be back the rest of the week talking Ohio State, and definitely trying to be as spicy as we can before the Buckeyes and the Longhorns battle it out down there in Jerry's world. Thank you, everybody, for tapping in and tuning in on a late Wednesday evening, y'all. Let's start the year off right with a Buckeye win. We'll see y'all next time.